Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a fascinating book called The Law of the River. I love the title, it got my attention very quickly, and there's a subtitle: Transboundary River Basin Management and Multi-Level Approaches to Water Quantity Management, and it's been written by Cathy Suykens, and it comes to us from Intersentia Ltd, a well-known firm of publishers both here in Cambridge and in Belgium, and they are extremely well qualified to publish information coming from the European Union and all things European, and it's particularly relevant at this time because of the nature of our relationship in the United Kingdom with the rest of the EU and the changes taking place up to the 29th of May 2019. I'm recording this in the middle of 2018 as work in progress continues. Now, we've given the title for our review the following: A Tale of the Riverbank. No, the Law of the River, Comparative and Environmental Lawyers Take Note. So it's actually the Law of the River, not a Tale of the Riverbank. However, it's fascinating to think of this because England particularly, and in fact the whole of the United Kingdom, has a huge number of rivers, and they actually are a very important part of what we do in all our communities. Let's have a look at the book first, and then we'll go into the review. There's the actual front. It's a paperback. There's the spine, and then there's the back. You can see it's a paperback. It follows the usual structure for Intersentia publications. There's a very big bibliography right at the back, which is very substantial. You can see it starts there, journals and then books. What you've got, it runs to 350 odd pages, the book itself. You've got numbering, actually numbering for the paragraphs. It's a slightly different way from the way we do it in England, but it's still very useful, and obviously a lot of footnotes. If we go to the front of the book, you can see there's the actual front cover itself. Then after that we've got the blurb about the book. Then you've got the acknowledgements, which are there. You've got the contents section itself, chapter by chapter. You can see how it runs through. There are in fact 6 specific chapters, and there are conclusions in the final chapter, and the other chapters have a series. There's an introductory chapter, then there are various introduction and recommendations as we run through the various heads in the chapters, and there's a case study. There's figures and tables, which you've got there, and they call it acronyms. In other words, it's abbreviations. This does help because there are a lot of them, especially anything to do with this area will have a lot of these abbreviations, and of course it's very useful to have. Then we get into the book itself, the introduction. You can see it's got numbering in that particular way, and then you've got footnoting, and it runs all the way through along those lines. An interesting book, as I say. Now, what do we say about it? Well, we say this. Elizabeth, in fact, wrote the first draft, and this is what we say: that water is essential to life. And it's a statement of the obvious and therefore incontestable. What is contestable is the management and maintenance of vital water resources, the ways in which the relevant policies are carried out, and the host of complex legal problems involved, especially when cross-border disagreements or disputes between nation states occur. And that's, of course, where this book comes into its own. The legalities of water resource management vary according to geographical position and therefore jurisdiction. Rivers, for example, quote, "gildeth at their own sweet will," to paraphrase Wordsworth, regardless of international boundaries, hence the welcome appearance of this new book by Cathy Suykens, published by Intersentia. The Law of the River presents, we think, a clear and detailed exposition of transboundary river basin management and the management of water quantity, providing at the same time a thorough examination of the relevant legal and policy frameworks. And I'm actually recording this during a very hot spell in the UK, a bit unusual, where in fact we're just about to start hitting a bit of drought, so it's rather topical. Comparative lawyers as well as environmental lawyers will be especially interested, we feel, in having a read of this book and the results of the outstanding amount of research contained in it. as evidenced by the 24-page bibliography, very substantial bibliography actually at the back of the book. Academics and policy makers, as well as lawyers, will be therefore well provided with reference sources for further inquiry. The book focuses on the management of water quantity, and that's specifically the amount of water quantity. That means flooding, water scarcity and droughts. And as I say, at the moment, having had a very wet spell in the spring, we've now got a very dry spell, so this comes into its own to a certain extent. It's an interesting and illustrative comparison to be made between European Union water quantity management requirements and those of the United States of America, citing as examples case studies of the Scheldt, shared by Belgium, France and the Netherlands, and the Delaware. And I think those are important points to draw out of the book. The resulting research-based observations will, of course, be just as pertinent and applicable to the vital river resources of the United Kingdom, which I alluded to earlier. I mean, just about every single major town has a river going through it, if you think about it, because of the way in which the communities have developed since Anglo-Saxon times and the beginning of memory. And of course, local authorities in the United Kingdom have these numerous river towns to take account of and to note. And I actually feel that this book would be quite a relevant book for local authorities within England and Wales, certainly, and certainly probably the whole of the United Kingdom. But whatever the jurisdiction, the issue of boundaries looms large. The author has observed, for example, that this is definitely in the category of the did you know, that the territories of 145 states worldwide run through transboundary lakes and river basins. A very interesting point if you think about the Rhine, the Danube and so forth, and all the other, and those are just ones we know of locally, but other areas of the world you can see, because likewise 60% of the European Union has that problem, and rivers can themselves become boundaries. The most conspicuous examples, of course, being the Rio Grande or Rio Grande, depending on how you pronounce it, between the United States of America and Mexico. Let me conclude by saying this. The key aim throughout this particular thesis is obviously to promote and encourage good governance of water resources with reference to the inherent legal issues. And the contribution of the author, Cathy Suykens, to the literature on this subject is most impressive, as are her credentials. To cite just one of them, she is a postdoctoral researcher at the Utrecht Centre for Water, Oceans and Sustainability Law. And I would add here, notwithstanding what she's saying in the book and the level of it, that this is a very important book for any emergency planning, because one of the areas that's always overlooked, disaster planning, emergency planning, whatever you want to call it, if you do have something like a major flood on your hands, it's this sort of information that is actually quite useful to be aware of, because it is always about planning at the end of the day. And so therefore practitioners seeking to enhance their understanding of this often complex area of law will find this book enlightening. I certainly did. And I think it's for environmental lawyers in particular, who should certainly be regarding it as an essential piece of reading. And obviously anybody involved in the changes that are going to take place within the European Union, I think again that would be of great relevance. And the publication date is cited as at 2018. Now let's just have a quick look at the book again. There it is, white cover, the front paperback. There's the spine, and then there's quite a lot of blurb on the back. Let's just open it in the middle. Chapter 3, Come Hell and High Water, the Law of the Scheldt District. There we go. You see, you've got an awful lot of information, a lot of comparisons, a lot of very detailed referencing going on as well. You've got some pictures as well. There's the United States legal framework there, and you've got some nice little photographs and so forth. There we go, you've got some more there. So in fact, the book itself, I think, is a really fascinating statement of the law of the river, times before it gets completely flooded itself. The Law of the River. It's an important work and one that I found interesting to read and to look at. So thank you, Cathy, and thank you, Intersentia, very much indeed for an excellent contribution and commentary on where we are at the moment. Thank you. Bye-bye.